Welcome to Rich Your Soul, Rhiannon Heins. It's great to have you join us today.
Hey, Rocky. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited for our conversation. We always like to start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up, and how much did your family and school teach you about money?
Wow. I've actually never been asked that question. What did my family and school teach me about money? So I had a beautiful childhood. Like, I'm one of the blessed people who get to say that I have a beautiful mum and dad, and I had a beautiful experience of childhood. I can hand on heart say that school taught me absolutely nothing about money, apart from that I should go out and work really hard, and that the harder I worked, potentially the more money I could make. That kind of lesson that we all get from that program. But my mum and dad taught me so much about money just through watching them, like just through watching them. So until the age of 8, we lived in London. So my mum and dad are from London, we're English. And when we were in London, we had very little money, like very little money. It's the cost of living was so high. I remember coming home from school and, like, if there was a £5 slip that I had to take home to get money for a school trip, I would feel guilty. I remember that feeling of guilt around asking them for things, like. And then they decided to move us to Australia because Australia is like the country with the opportunities. And we did that. We moved to Australia. My mum was a hairdresser. My dad was a carpenter. And on the way to Australia, we stopped in Singapore. And in Singapore, my dad met another man by the pool. And this man said, I know a guy who runs an insurance building company. I'll introduce you in Perth. So when we arrived in Perth, my dad got that connection. And he started to do like carpentry for this guy. But this guy had a big vision to grow his business, a big vision, and he needed someone to invest. And I remember my mum and dad being really terrified of this opportunity, but it was an opportunity that had never, ever landed on their feet before, like come into their lap before, or whatever the expression is. And I remember they remortgaged their house. So it was a very modest house. They remortgaged their house and they went all in on this opportunity. And it was really scary for them. And then the company grew and it grew and it grew and it grew and it grew. And my dad was one of the original partners. And he actually he's 60 now. He sold his shares in that business last month rather. And there was a big merger. And so what I learned from them is that if you want to create radical change in your finances, you have to make big calculated investments, big calculated risks, and that is a safe thing to do. Like, it's okay to go for it. I know what it is to not have money. I know what it is to experience money as a little girl. Like, I remember a shift. Friday night was always takeaway night, and we used to get McDonald's. And then I remember all of a sudden Friday night being seafood night, and we got oysters. There was like such a big change from my experience. Like, I've experienced both as a child. And what that's taught me is like gratitude, like immense gratitude for money, but also to be brave, like to be brave and to go for it, and to take courageous action. So that is what my life taught me about money. So I feel like I had a very blessed insight into wealth from my mom and dad, but especially my dad.
So, were they intentionally teaching you about money, or were you learning because you went on this journey of starting in a not so great place and then watching the wealth come over time?
Yeah, it was actually when they tried to speak to me intentionally to give me the lessons about money, it was more so coming from their conditioning. Getting a good job and getting a good qualification. Anything that they spoke to me when I was much younger was from their conditioned self. But obviously, we learn far more from what our parents do than what they say. So I actually was taken along for the journey, and that's where I learned. I learned from witnessing them, and now that they are at this stage of their life, their lessons that come from their mouth is coming from their experience, and their teachings are a lot more courageous now.
You know, it's funny because I'm hearing you talk about these things and I'm noticing certain, I don't know what the right word to use is, but now I will say it was courageous of them to mortgage their house and put it all in. No doubt about that. But I think I think we think of starting a business as risky or being involved
Mm,
in business is risky. And yet
mm,
when you have a job, essentially you're your own business owner and you've sold yourself to an employer that can fire you in any moment. And
mm,
so for a lot of people, having a job, especially if their skills are something that becomes obsolete,
mm,
is extremely risky in the world. Um, Whereas if you're constantly growing, regardless of whether it's at work or in your own company, that's truly what gives you the freedom is the growth. And
mm,
yet I think we label it by, oh, you have to go to school. And school doesn't always teach us, like you said, school didn't teach you about money. Um, but they also condition us tremendously.
yeah. I feel like when we go from the employee paradigm, especially when you're breaking like generational conditioning around the employee paradigm, being like my dad was the first one, like from a long line of very working class employees. My dad was the first one ancestrally to say, this isn't right. I'm going to try something new. And in that moment, like that would have felt so risky and so terrifying. But I actually think it would have been more terrifying for him to stay an employee forever and to not try. But now, if you spoke to him, my older brother has just bought a really cool burger business, but he's still working his full-time job. And my dad is like, just go all in. Like, how are you going to grow this thing? And my dad is like thinking about the next franchise opportunity and trying to like coach him from this perspective. And it's so interesting to see that he would fully agree with you now, that my brother giving 40 hours a week to his job as an employee is a far higher risk thing to do than giving his energy to his business.
And I think that's a typical pattern that many people go through. Whatever it is with something new, whatever we're comfortable with, we assume is not risky, even if it is. And what we're not comfortable with, we attach the word risky to, whether or not it's risky or not. And
Mm,
it's funny how we label things and then we think of them as that, but in reality it's our viewpoint put on that situation, not the reality of the situation.
yeah, beautiful.
Hmm.
Exactly.
So you also went through somewhat of a change. You continued through school and you actually were getting involved in accounting and then life happened. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, I think when I was younger, I was like incredibly capable in the eyes of the school system. So I was really good at maths and really good at English, and I did like the higher level exams and all that stuff. But I was also like really creative and I loved to do poetry, and that was never honored or recognized or supported. I remember I wrote a poem in my final exams, and that was the only exam that I kind of failed, is the one where I expressed poetry from my heart. So I was like, well, okay, if my creativity isn't good in the eyes of the system, then I have to do what they deem to be really good. And I did accounting and I got like, really good grade. So from those great grades, I applied for this scholarship when I was just 17 with this accounting firm in Perth City, and I got this scholarship, and it was like a really awesome opportunity as a 17-year-old to go to accounting at a really great university and to be paid to work 2 days a week at this accounting firm. They paid for like office clothes for me and textbooks for school and everything. But the part of me that wanted to write poetry, the part of me that wanted to like sing and dance and be expressed, it was like screaming. I remember going into this office and just feeling like I had to like dull my light so much to be able to get through. And I started smoking, and I like started partying really hard because I was just like, I've got to feel something. Like I need to feel something, because I felt like dead, and I felt that there was an energy of almost like death in this office. Some offices I know are alive and vibrant, but this one was definitely not. And I just quit. Like 6 months in, I was like, I'm not doing this degree. I'm not doing this job. I'm going to do something as different as possible to this that I can possibly find. And that is when I enrolled in a course to do body work and remedial massage therapy. And that's when my journey as a healer began, when I was 18, and I said, I can't participate in whatever this structure is. And I left it and studied something new.
What did your parents say about that?
So it made me realize in leaving that how much of like doing the accounting was fulfilling, I think, an unfulfilled aspect of my dad, but he would have never projected anything like that onto me intentionally. But where he knew he was very capable and became a carpenter, he used to say, I wish I did accounting. He used to say things like that. And I think there was part of my unconscious, my unconscious that wanted to fulfill that for him. But my mum and dad are so supportive. Like, they are so supportive. Anything that I do or anything that I ever did, as long as I was happy, they were with me like 100.
And that's wonderful to hear. Too often, our parents want to keep us safe, but safe doesn't equal happy. Safe equals being an accountant.
Totally. And I know that I scare my dad because I make such unpredictable decisions in the name of like following my path. And I constantly let go of things that don't serve and step into these big, bold decisions. And it does scare him. My mum's got used to it, but they are like constantly coming along for this ride with me. But for me, the risky, like what you said before, the riskiest, most uncomfortable thing for me would be to stay still, to not act.
It's funny because that's the opposite of society.
Mm.
Most people don't take action, they don't actually do anything. Like if I asked what percentage of people take action, the numbers are somewhere between 1% and 3%. So the fact that you do it all the time means that 97% of the people are going to be freaked out.
Yeah. But that's how life just keeps getting more and more miraculous. Like I wouldn't risk not acting when like I have a creative impulse, a creative desire, and an opportunity comes my way and it feels expansive. I wouldn't risk not taking action, because every single time I have taken a big leap of faith, like I've been rewarded with something wildly beautiful beyond anything that I can imagine or plan for.
And I think that's true of people who do take big, bold action. But has it always been a straight line to success, or are there setbacks along the way?
I guess it depends your definition of success. Like, to me, I measure success by freedom and love, and as an experience of how that feels in my body. Like, so often money enables freedom, because when we have money, we don't have to be bound to whatever job we feel bound to that we don't enjoy. So, but to me, freedom is what I associate with that as the energy that is my highest path. It's freedom, abundance, love, and joy. So that means sometimes like reaching out and working with someone new in my business and exploring this new opportunity, investing money into that. But then potentially that doesn't work out. It doesn't flow. So to me, that's not a setback at all. It's like a lesson, because from these crumblings, it's like, what did I get from that? I'm so much clearer on this training. I'm so much clearer on this offering. And then once I'm attuned to the magic, the miracle, and that perceived setback, then the next thing comes into my field. And it's continual progress. In that respect, there are no setbacks. Things often don't go as I perceive or I expect that they will, but there's always something that is taking me to the next marker of that measure of success, which is freedom, love, abundance, joy.
And so you're defining, and this isn't the right word, but I think most people would look at it as failure or mistakes or problems. But you're redefining them as these are learning experiences for me to get clarity. And I
Yeah.
think there's a Thomas Edison quote along that. I didn't fail at creating the light bulb 1,000 times. I figured out 1,000 things that will not work. I'm step closer to where I want to be.
Yeah, that is totally how I perceive it. And I think it's a really important shift in perception because it brings us into gratitude. It brings us into gratitude of every experience. And when we're in the vibration of gratitude, we're really masterful creators. So as soon as something is not going how you thought it would be, or it's a perceived like obstacle, roadblock, perceived failure, it's like that beautiful quote that you just brought in about the light bulbs. It's like, what do I need to let go of here to be even clearer on my mission, on my journey, on my path? And then when you find that, when you ask of the situation, like, what are you trying to show me here? Then in that, there's always an aha moment. And in that aha moment, that's where we attune to gratitude.
You keep talking about a higher energy level.
Mm.
How do we move up in our energy
Mm.
levels
Yeah.
and change the frequency we operate at?
Okay. I love this question. I love this question. We do that by honoring the contraction, because within every contraction there is the opportunity for expansion. So in our external reality, these contractions might be the perceived failures, the meltdown of a marriage, the landlord saying that you have to move out and not being able to find anywhere else to live, or these huge things that feel like these major life contractions, or sales not going to plan, everything seems to be going wrong, right? These are like contractions. They move our body, our entire reality into a tightening. So in the external world, that's what I mean by a contraction. In the internal world, the contraction is some kind of pain. It's sadness, it's grief, it's anxiety, it's anger, it's frustration. These are all contractions. And most of us want to avoid the pain. We want to fix the pain, right? We want to correct whatever is seemingly wrong internally or externally. But when we can witness without judgment a contraction, so that whether that's sadness in the body or a crumbling of a marriage externally, whatever it is, when we can just witness that contraction and ask it like, what are you trying to show me? And without trying to change what appears to be wrong, Just witness the energy and ask of it, what are you trying to show me? Then the contraction always changes to a monumental expansion. An expansion which is a complete rewiring of your perception of reality and a shift into an elevated experience of reality. So, for example, in that moment where your marriage is crumbling, it's like this huge amount of turmoil and chaos, and it just feels like, right? And we want to run away from the pain. So, most people try and numb pain. They go to the bar and drink. They go like party really hard. They go on their phone and scroll. They want to escape pain. But it's like, what are you trying to show me in that turmoil? If you can ask that and find the answer to that question, it's going to be like, you need space. You need to honor yourself. You need to go traveling. You need to breathe. You need to get into nature. You need to dive into the ocean. When we listen to the energy and give it what it needs, in that moment, there is a release. There is a release. The moment you dive into the ocean, you feel the water, you feel the sun, you feel your freedom, you feel your aliveness. That is a rebirth of self. When you don't resist the pain of the contraction. And that is how we move into a higher vibration, a higher experience. And like a woman in childbirth, the ultimate upgrade is like the maiden to the mother, the woman, the childless woman to the woman who gives herself to a baby, like complete devotion. And that experience of labor prepares her for that upgrade. And if she resists each contraction, she doesn't get the full experience of that upgrade. But if she allows herself to just be with it without judgment, to just surrender herself into the pain of each contraction, then that is a whole journey in itself of these smaller upgrades in her energy, softening in her energy, surrender into her energy, into the ultimate surrender, which is her becoming of a mother. I hope that explains what I mean.
It does. And I think because a question popped up, and I think you even kind of covered it, because my thought is most people aren't trying to fix the problem. They're trying to put band-aids over it. So they
Mm,
turn to the partying and to the alcohol or to other scrolling on their phone or whatever it is versus actually addressing the root cause of the problem. But I've also noticed, and I've noticed it even with myself, A, it's not easy to observe ourselves.
mm,
And B, many times the patterns we run, we don't even realize we're running.
mm,
And so we're stuck in these loops and we're just not even aware.
that's true. And what we need then is space, like space to know ourselves. And I think space comes in when we're just not so busy and we're not so busy talking and in our mind, like space, just contemplative space brings light onto those patterns. And by asking the question, what are you trying to show me? That's not a question that you're asking yourself. That's a question that you're asking a higher power, the innate intelligence within, the God or universe or the divine or whatever you want to call it. When you ask to your body that is suffering and in some kind of energetic turmoil, when you ask and you find that space to go for a walk on the beach barefoot and you just speak to that pain, you say, what are you trying to show me? You might not get this huge answer like speaking to you in your head, but you're going to have an unraveling that shines a light on those patterns that you speak about. But that can only happen when you create space for that contemplative inward reflection. You have to ask to be shown if there is something cycling, and then you will be shown.
We have to stop running around. And
Literally,
that's a big part of it, which isn't easy.
it's not easy.
So we're here to chat. We're here to chat about your book. What inspired you to write the book, Keepers of the Light?
So I've always loved writing. Like I spoke about at the beginning of our chat, it's like I've always loved writing. I've always loved writing poems, writing from my heart. And when I look back at the poems that I wrote when I was a little girl, like they were really beautiful. They were about guardian angels and like they were really sweet. And as I've healed and and moved beyond my conditioned self back into that childlike state of creative energy, it just leads me to write and write and write. And the writing is at its purest form when I just like completely give over my mind to my body and my heart and just let like words flow through me. So in that, like I am a channel for what I write. So spirit speaks through me, but spirit speaks through all of us, really. My way of integrating it is to bring it into a book. But we're all channels. And because I love to sit and write, this channeled frequency just comes through me, comes into the keyboard and onto the screen. And Spirit told me that I would have to write a book. Spirit told me actually that I'd write many books. So the second one is coming very soon as well. But the message in this book that came through is about how, as humanity, we need to claim our mastery. We need to claim our mastery because as we upgrade, we are moving beyond, we're transcending the paradigm of fixed linear time. Things are happening quicker, right? You hear people say like time is getting weird, it's getting elastic, it's getting really tricky and strange. It's because our energy is ascending, evolving beyond the construct of linear time. So in that now, the book, the channeled message in the book, in that there's an invitation to claim your mastery now, to claim your wholeness now. Like so many people who are soul searching. A search is a journey, right? That has like an implication of linear time. A journey is like point A to point B, where I have to move through this linear time and linear space to find that point B. But when we move beyond the construct of linear time, we're every aspect of ourselves now. We are healed now. We are whole now. We are wealthy now. We are joyous now. We are whatever we choose to be, since we are the ones dictating our experience on life based on our own perception of self. So this book is a journey into the deepest aspect of the present moment and nothing more. Because in the deepest aspect of the present moment, we find our absolute masterful, healed and whole self. So obviously that is a lot to process, right? Like I've just put that into a paragraph. And there's so much of us that resists that. Like, well, I'm not healed. I'm not whole. I'm not this. I'm not that. There's all these programs that run to resist what I'm saying. And the book addresses that. There's all these initiations and lessons that just one by one just speak to those layers of resistance to our claiming of our mastery now.
And I think you're correct. You know, with me, I'm always living in the future, living in the past, not living in the moment. And that seems to be the message from so many places. And it comes in a variety of different ways, but it's always that same theme of the message. You have to live in the moment and experience the moment. And as you said, many of us are distracted. We don't quiet down so that we can even experience the moment and look around. And the human mind filters what you tell it to filter. And so you, in a sense, have closed yourself down by telling the mind, only filter these things to me, ignore the rest of life, ignore all the
Yeah.
wonderful things happening around me. And in the same way, it even comes back to money. If you say, "Oh, I'll never have money," well, if money shows up, you won't even see it because you've closed your mind to looking for that opportunity.
Yeah.
Um, It's funny how these things all kind of flow together.
Yeah.
You talk
And
in the book about the energetic body. Go ahead, finish that, and then I'll ask my next question.
yeah, I was also going to add that, there's not there's not too much benefit from being in the past, that's for sure, reliving and recycling old experiences. But also the mind, the thinking mind is like the creator mind. So the images of the future that we are bringing into our field to experience, like that's also powerful. So it's like being in the present moment as much as possible, and when creative inspiration flows in and excitement for the most divine potential of the future, allowing that vision to flow in, but then anchoring it energetically into the present moment by feeling it as a frequency now. And then you don't even need to have the vision to escape the present moment. Like, you just be that wealthy now as you are in the garden tending to the flowers. You just be completely healed and masterful now as you're in your beautiful home. It's like there's a richness of the future in the present moment also.
You have to be one with it and feel it and kind of tune in, which is kind of where my next question was how do we get in touch with our energetic body?
Yeah. Your energetic body is there whether you like it or not, like whether you feel it or not, whether you give it space or not, right? So I'm very sensitive because I spend a lot of time connecting to my energetic body. So when there is something that is out of alignment, I just feel it super subtly, like super subtle within my body. Like, this house doesn't feel expansive to me anymore. I think we've got to move. But when I was 20 and engaged and um, had a mortgage and still kind of stuck in this paradigm where things were out of alignment, but very not sensitive, my energetic body spoke to me by feeling incredibly depressed. I was numb. So the intensity of what I had to experience to make change was huge. So we get in touch with the energetic body, and assuming that with this question, I'm going to answer to someone who feels that they're not in touch with the energetic body first. You do that by acknowledging what's there, and it's usually in the emotional body. It's in the emotional body. And I'm not talking about the emotion that is there when you think thoughts, because that is a cycle that you can release by upgrading your mind. But when you go for that walk and your mind is open and clear and you're looking at the trees and you feel sadness or you feel anger, the most empowering technique that I can give you is to just notice where it sits within your body, right? If you feel angry, fair enough, validate it. Fair enough, you feel angry. Go for a walk. Fair enough. The kids have been really hard work. Work has been really tense. Fair enough. You validate it. Then you find that place within your body where you feel it. Maybe it's like in the center of the ribs here. Put your hand there and see if you can inhale to like be in that intensity. Inhale into it. And then exhale out of your mouth to let it be heard. Because the throat is how we move energy. And when we give an energy sound, we start to transmute that contraction into an expansion, right? So it's like validate the emotion, the energy that you feel, and without projection. So you have to do this on your own. You don't do this at your wife, right? Without projection, on your own, you inhale into that space and you exhale and give it some sound. And when you start doing that, you will probably feel so much energy that wants to be expressed that you're going to have to go and roar. You're going to have to go and roar in the middle of the woods. And when you do that, you're becoming attuned to your energetic self. And then you become more sensitive by doing it all the time. As you sit there, you feel this like anxious feeling right now. I'm not going to resist it. I'm going to allow. Fair enough, I feel anxious. I'm going to validate it. I'm going to breathe into it. And without resisting it, without trying to run away from it, I'm going to give it a little sound, a little expression. What does this anxiety, what does this feeling want to say? It wants to say. And then maybe by keep holding yourself in that, it will lead to tears. It will lead to a release of everything that you've been holding on to. And the more you do this, the easier it becomes, the more attuned to your feeling body, to your energetic self you become. But it comes first by acknowledging and allowing whatever is there right now, like right now.
It kind of reminds me of the phrase, sometimes people say, oh, they're wound too tight, right? It
Mm-hmm.
means their energy, they haven't let go, they haven't released, and they're stuck in that space. Mm.
Yeah. And beyond ourselves, we're holding it all. Like we're holding that tight winding of the collective. We're literally holding that within our fields. We're holding that from our ancestral line, from our mothers, from our fathers, our grandparents. We're holding it all. And the more you allow yourself to feel the contraction within of your lineage, of the collective, of yourself, of the soul, the more free you become, the more expansive you become.
Sounds simple. Maybe not always simple to achieve. You've got
It's
a new
sometimes we
book
need help.
coming out.
Mm.
What's that?
Sometimes we do need a little help just to create that space for ourselves.
That we do. You've got a new book coming out. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's actually the perfect question to lead on from what we've just discussed because it talks it talks us through, it talks you through that as a process. It talks you through finding freedom internally and externally by honoring, acknowledging, and giving voice to whatever is alive within your body. So it's called the Intuitive Rebirth. And it's really practical. It's like how to practically feel it all and heal it all so that you can start to experience the expansive pleasure of life. Like this life experience is pleasure. It is pleasure in all its highs and lows. And the book is like a rewiring back to that pleasure, back to that essence of what it is to be alive and embodied and here on this beautiful realm called Earth. And even as I say that, that triggers a lot of people because they're like, that's far-fetched. That's, this Earth isn't beautiful. It's this and that. There's all these ideas that are triggered. But all of that is a resistance to pleasure in the body that can be transmuted.
It's a process.
Yeah.
Takes time. Takes effort. You have to want to do it. So, I've heard a lot of people talk about how psychedelics can help with this.
Yeah.
What have you kind of experienced or seen with that?
Yeah, the medicine that is available to us in this beautiful planet is so incredible. And the way to me plant medicine, so the ones that I speak about now, when I say plant medicine, to me what's on my heart is ayahuasca, psilocybin, and cactus, wachuma. So like these are the medicines that I've experienced with, and to me it's the complete surrendering of that mind that resists our healing and expansion, that our mind that wants to hold on and know it all and control it all and make sense of it all. When we enter these like medicine realms, we have no choice but to surrender into the experience. And we have no choice but to give ourselves to the contraction. So ayahuasca for me is like my ally in the work that I do. I call upon the frequency of ayahuasca in the Intuitive Rebirth retreats and in my work all the time, because that is the medicine that is a journey of contraction, expansion, contraction, expansion. Every time I've journeyed with ayahuasca, with the mother, it's been really intense for me, because there's been these huge contractions, like so much energy in my body that it's almost unbearable. The visuals becoming a little bit dark, a little bit scary, that I want to run away. This is the contraction, right? This is the metaphor for the contraction. And when I fight against it, when I'm like, no, it's too scary, no, it's too much, it builds and it builds and it builds. And when I give myself to it, when I give myself to the scary visions, to the intensity of the energy, and I'm like, okay, what are you trying to show me? It is like fireworks from my heart. It is like love. It is like, well done, you did it. And that's why the medicine helps us with this experience of feeling and surrendering into the intensity of the contraction so we can expand. And mushrooms is so that journey to me as well, of contraction, expansion. Sometimes in mushrooms, it all gets a bit weird. It all starts bending a bit much, and it's like, oh, I'm not into it. And then it's like, okay, how deeply can I surrender? How deeply can I surrender into this? And then you look around, it's like, whoa, that tree is alive. And that is that journey of contraction, expansion, resistance, and surrender. Is that your experience from mushrooms as well?
I have not had experiences that are the dosages aren't there, right?
Oh,
They're not.
yeah.
It's not that level. I've talked to a lot of people who have, and it's been kind of eye opening
Yeah.
to see. I'm not going to say it's mainstream, but it's a lot more mainstream than people talk about. When you start to
Yeah.
have the conversations, you realize that it is much more prevalent. And I think in the past people have looked at it as more of a party situation, and this is not about partying. This is about kind of an inner self development. It's a very different kind of journey. It's about improving yourself, and I guess the way I would say is it's allowing the walls to come down so you can do the work that you need to do, and all of the barriers that you've put up start to fall away, and so it becomes easier to face yourself, so to speak.
Exactly. Yeah. It's so beautiful. It's true medicine. I agree with what you're saying, that so many more people are doing it than we know. And I feel like these medicines are so instrumental for this collective awakening, because ultimately you go into these realms and you're like, magic is real. Magic is real. And in that remembering or realization, like, you kind of just can't exist in the false paradigm.
That is so, so true. Is there anything that we should have touched on today that we didn't get a chance to talk about?
Yeah, I think just to like bring everything together, there's so many different experiences here that you can have to like awaken consciousness and to move into this like surrendering experience of remembering who you truly are. But in like fighting and seeking to find these right now, it's it's kind of taking you back into that energy of like hustle, but like hustling for something else. So yeah, my invitation to your listeners is to just like notice what really landed for you in your heart. Is there something that you're like, whoa, I really need to try that, whether it's the plant medicine or whether it was just the simple like teaching of breathing into your body and having a big scream in the woods, like whatever it is, what landed for you, and just speak to the divine, speak to that innate intelligence that's guiding you in your life, and just say like, show me how to bring more of that in. Show me how to bring more of that in. And just notice how opportunities come your way, like offerings come your way, and there's nothing to seek There's nothing to seek. Like, you're done, you're there. Just invite in sacred opportunities and notice that they'll land at your doorstep.
And I think some people might think they're a little scary, but they're not. Just go do it, right? Let go. Be
Yeah.
courageous. It's kind of taking us full circle back to the beginning.
Yeah, sometimes, the fear's not going to go. You have to do it with the fear. My husband has actually just got back from Peru, and he did a 40-day dieta in the jungle. So he did 40 days in a hut, no electricity, like very basic food, no speaking, total silence for 40 days. And in that, he did 16 ayahuasca ceremonies. It's a lot of ayahuasca. He said, even though he'd done 16, still, before he drank the 16th cup, he was still nervous. He was still nervous. Like, the fear is there. And I feel like that's what allows us to have respect and reverence for the power of these medicines and the power of the work that we can do. That fear of change, the fear of our power, the fear of who are we really. All of this work comes with fear, and you have to do it with the fear.
It almost seems to me, though, the real fear in life that most people ignore is the fear of maybe one day, when it all comes to an end, you're introduced to the person you could have been
Yeah.
and you chose not to. And that would be a very fearful conversation if it comes to be.
Wow, I just got full cold chills. Yeah, just be that person now. Like,
What's your secret to living an abundant life?
number one, it's just feeling abundance at all times, not ever allowing myself to perceive that there's any lack anywhere. Just feeling the frequency of abundance, even if it is just in the incredible fruit bowl. It's a frequency, and I hold that as a frequency all the time. And then holding the vision of my most divinely alive and beautiful future, feeling that as a frequency of abundance and bringing that frequency into the now by just feeling it, feeling the energy of it now.
What did you learn later in life that you wish you would have learned sooner?
Well, I'm lucky that I had a lot of very intense lessons very early on in my life. But I wish I would have known how powerful I was, how much I had to offer. I wish I would have known how beautiful my heart was and how much magic I could weave through the world with my heart, instead of feeling like I had to be someone else or achieve a status created by someone else's paradigm. I wish I would have known how great I was when I was younger, because then I would have just lived a life from that space of greatness and not really cared what anyone else thought.
To give an 18-year-old one specific piece of wisdom, what would it be?
I would love to ask any 18-year-old, what do you really love doing? What do you really want to do today? Like, what do you love so much? And then I would love to invite them to like vision and dream and create the most profoundly detailed story for themselves and who they are in this lifetime. And I would tell them just to act from joy and pleasure, knowing that that is your inevitable future. And that share with anyone, 18 or 68, how much is available to us when we literally allow ourselves to remember how magic this reality is, and that our ability to create incredible life is only limited by our perception of what's real and what's possible. And we can unhook that within our mind in an instant, and we can create anything that we can visualize.
People would like to learn more about you, your books, your retreats. What is the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so I'm the founder and teacher of an energy work movement called Intuitive Rebirth, and we train practitioners online and in the retreat space. So if you want to go on a deep healing of yourself and you want to activate your service and your purpose, then you can join us in one of our retreats, and you can find that on intuitiverebirth.com. There's also my book is coming out in December of 2023, and it's called The Intuitive Rebirth, and it will be available everywhere. And you can follow me on Instagram. My name's Rhiannon Heins, or you can follow Intuitive Rebirth on Instagram.
And we will put that all in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Rocky. It's been awesome to connect, awesome to be here with your beautiful listeners.
Thanks for checking out this unedited video of the Richer Soul podcast. You can find the full episode along with all the back episodes at richersoul.com. This podcast is brought to you by Profit Comes First, where we help business owners to have a more profitable and growing business so they can live the life of their dreams. Check that out as well wherever you listen to all this content.